Chapter 1. I have been able to see monsters since I was 4 years old. Not metaphorical monsters, not the kind that people meant when they said someone had monsters inside them. Real ones, the things that moved through the world alongside humans and that most humans could not see because the human eye was not built to register them. I always had been able to. My mother said I started pointing at things when I was 4 and screaming, and she had not understood what I was pointing at for a long time. She understood eventually. She was a practical woman. She took the understanding and she found people who knew about these things and she got me to them and they told her what I was and what I could do and what it meant. She did not run from it. She was frightened, but she did not run. I got that from her, I think, the not running. The people who knew about these things became my teachers. I learned what I was seeing, the different kinds, what they wanted and what they did not want, and which ones were dangerous and which ones were only frightening. Most of them were only frightening. The truly dangerous ones were rarer than people thought. The world was full of things that looked terrifying and were not particularly threatening, and full of things that looked ordinary and were. I grew up into someone who walked through the world with the specific awareness of someone who was always reading 2 layers of it at once. The visible layer that everyone saw and the other layer underneath it, the layer with teeth. I had learned not to react to things that other people could not see. I had learned to keep my face ordinary while my eyes told me things that made ordinary difficult. It was a skill. I was good at it. By the time I was 24, I had been working for 5 years alongside other people who knew about the other layer. Not many of us. Enough. We did what needed doing. We kept the balance between the layers as best we could. It was not always clean work. It was necessary work, and I was good at it, and I had found a way to live inside it that was bearable and sometimes more than bearable. I had never met one that looked like a person. I do not mean one that was disguised. I mean one that was genuinely shaped like a person, that moved like a person, that had the full texture of a human life around it, an address and a job and a coffee order and a name. The things I usually saw were not like that. They occupied the world differently. They were in it without being of it. The way he was in it was different. I met him on a Tuesday in the middle of the kind of ordinary day that was always the day things happened. I was not looking for him. I was not looking for anything. I was on my way to a meeting about something else entirely when I saw him across the street. I stopped walking. He was standing outside a bookshop looking at the window display, pale skin and dark hair, and he was wearing the kind of clothes that ordinary people wore, and he had a coffee cup in his hand, and he was reading the titles in the window with the specific focus of someone who was genuinely interested in books. And his eyes were red. Not the red of irritated eyes, not a trick of the light, the red of something very old looking out through a human face. The specific red I had learned to recognize across 5 years of work, not dangerous red, not the burning red of something that was going to cause harm, something else, something I had not seen before. He had not seen me yet. I stood on the pavement and I looked at him, and the other layer of the world was perfectly clear to me, and what I was seeing in that layer was something I had never seen before, and I did not know what to do with it. Then he looked up from the window and he saw me. And he went very still. We looked at each other across the street, me with my amber eyes and him with his red ones, him understanding immediately that I could see him, me understanding that he understood. He did not run. I did not run. We stood there for a moment, then he looked back at the bookshop window. I walked away. I went to my meeting. I sat in it and did not absorb anything that was said because I was thinking about red eyes reading book titles in a shop window and what that meant and why he had not run. Chapter 2. I went back to the bookshop the next day. I told myself I was going for a book. I was not going for a book. I was going because I had been thinking about red eyes since Tuesday, and because in 5 years of this work I had never seen what I had seen across that street, and I was not able to leave it alone. He was not outside the shop. I stood on the pavement for a moment, and then I went in. He was inside, in the back section in the part with the older books, standing with one open in his hands. He was reading it. He did not look up when I came in, but he knew I was there. I could see the small adjustment in his posture, the slight turn of his head, aware. I went to the same section. I picked up a book I had no interest in and looked at it. He said he had wondered if I would come back. I said I had wondered the same thing. He said most people in my position did not come back. I said I was not most people in my position. He looked at me then, full on. The red eyes in the close space of the bookshop were different from across the street, more present, more specific. I looked back at him the way I had learned to look at things that most people would have looked away from, directly and without flinching and without pretending I was not looking. He looked slightly surprised, like he had expected me to look away and I had not. I asked his name. He said Kale. I said my name was Vera. I said I worked with people who dealt with things like him, and I was not there in that capacity. I said I was there because I had never seen what I had seen across that street, and I wanted to understand it. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, "What had I seen?" I said I had seen something old looking out through a face that had been very carefully built to be ordinary. I said I had seen something that had a coffee cup and a reading habit, and it stood still when it saw me instead of running. I said I had seen something I did not have a category for. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said that was the most accurate description of him anyone had given in a very long time. I said, "How long?" He said, "A while." I bought the book I had not wanted and I left. He was still in the back section when I went. I did not look back. I thought about the conversation the whole way home, specifically about the word accurate, the most accurate description in a very long time. Accurate meant he had been described before, inaccurately, many times, over a long time. I thought about what that meant, what it was like to be described inaccurately for a very long time. I went back the day after. Chapter 3. He was in the bookshop again, back section, different book. I sat down on the small chair that was next to the shelf in that section. It was that kind of bookshop, old and slightly chaotic and full of chairs in unexpected places. He looked at me when I sat down. He did not look surprised this time. I said I had been thinking about what he was. He said he had thought I might have been. I said I had gone through everything I knew about the things I could see, and none of them fit. The texture of what I was seeing when I looked at him was not like anything I had encountered. It was old in a way that most old things were not. Most old things were old in the way of something that had been accumulating time from the outside. He was old in the way of something that had been here from the beginning. He put the book down. He sat on the floor with his back against the shelf, the way you sat when you were going to have a conversation that required more than standing. He told me what he was. Not in one sentence. It took a while. He was careful with the words the way someone was careful with words when they had gotten the words wrong before and had learned that precision mattered. He said he was something that had been in the world longer than most things that were currently in the world. He said he had been many things across the time. He said the shape he wore now was the shape he had worn for the longest. He said the red in his eyes was not a flaw in the disguise. It was what remained when he was not actively concealing everything, a kind of compromise, human enough to move through the world, honest enough that he could see himself in mirrors without it being a lie. I asked what he had been before this shape. He said larger. He said it with the specific dry quality of someone who found the understatement appropriate. I asked if he was dangerous. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said that was the right question, and he appreciated that I had asked it directly. He said he had been dangerous. He said that was accurate, and he was not going to pretend otherwise. He said the things I probably knew about his kind from my work were probably not entirely wrong. He said the version of him that existed now was different from the version that had earned that reputation. He said he could not prove this. He said he understood if it was not sufficient. I looked at him on the floor of the bookshop, pale skin and dark hair and red eyes that were looking at me with a specific quality of honesty that I recognized. I had been working with people who dealt in difficult truths for 5 years. I knew what it looked like when someone was telling you the truth about something that cost them something to tell. I said I did not need proof right now. I said I needed more information. He said all right. He said he could do information. We stayed in the back section of the bookshop for 2 hours. He answered every question I asked. Not all the answers were comfortable. Some of them were very old answers about very old things, and they sat heavily when I received them. I sat with them anyway. I did not look away from any of them. When I left, I had more information. I had not resolved anything. I had a clearer picture of what I was dealing with, and the clearer picture was both more interesting and more complicated than the unclear one had been. I went home and I sat with it, and I was honest with myself about what I was doing and why. I was going to go back again tomorrow. Chapter 4. The bookshop became where we met. Not by agreement, by accumulation. I went back and he was there and we talked and I left, and the next day I went back and he was there, and over 2 weeks the pattern established itself without either of us discussing it. The owner of the shop was an old man who seemed to find us entirely unremarkable. He made tea sometimes and left it near where we were sitting without being asked. He had the specific quality of someone who had seen a great many things in his shop and had decided to be interested in the books rather than the people. We talked about a great many things. Not all of them were about what he was. He asked questions about my work that were intelligent and specific. He understood the structure of what I did in a way that suggested he had been watching the structure for a long time from the outside. I asked him about what he had been and what he had seen and where and when. He answered with the same careful precision he brought to everything, not performing, just thorough. He was funny. This surprised me. Not the dark humor that I might have expected from something old and heavy with history, something drier and more specific. The humor of someone who had been watching human beings for a very long time and found the watching consistently interesting. He would say something about a book he was reading or something he had observed in the city, and it would be so precisely observed that I laughed before I had decided to. He noticed things. This was the larger thing. The quality of his attention to everything around him was extraordinary in the specific way that very old things had an extraordinary quality of attention. He had seen enough to know what was worth noticing and what was not, and he did not waste attention on things that did not warrant it and gave full attention to things that did. He gave full attention to me, to what I said and how I said it and what I was not saying alongside what I was saying. Nobody had ever paid that quality of attention to me. Most people paid surface attention and thought they were listening. He paid the deep kind, the kind that went under the words to what the words were about. I found this overwhelming in a way I was not prepared for. I had spent 24 years being seen at the surface level. Suddenly being seen at another level entirely was disorienting and also the most seen I had felt in a long time. I mentioned this to him once, not directly. I said something about how he listened differently from most people. He said he had had a long time to practice. I said most people with a long time to practice listened less, not more. He said that was because most people listened in order to respond. He said he had stopped needing to respond a long time ago. He said listening for its own sake was different. I thought about that for the rest of the day. I told my colleague about him on the third week. Not everything. Enough. She looked at me for a long moment and then she said to be careful. I said I was always careful. She said I was careful about the work. She said she meant a different kind of careful. I understood what she meant. I was not sure careful was the right response, but I noted it. Chapter 5. I had been seeing the other layer of the world since I was 4 years old, and in 20 years of seeing it, I had developed a specific relationship with what I saw. Most things in the other layer were legible, not simple, but legible. I could read what they were from what they looked like in that layer, the texture of them, the specific quality of their presence in the world. The things I had been seeing my whole life were various and strange and sometimes frightening, but they were readable. I had built a vocabulary for them. He was not legible in the usual way. When I looked at him in the other layer, I saw something that did not fit my vocabulary. The red eyes were part of it, but the red was not the most significant thing. The most significant thing was the quality of his presence in that layer. Most things had a specific quality. They were in the world in a particular way, dense or light, sharp or diffuse, moving or still in the way of something that had a specific nature. He was in the world like water, not like still water, like the kind of water that moved through things, everywhere and nowhere specific, present in the layer in a way that did not resolve into a point when I tried to locate it. He was simply everywhere he was fully, and the presence did not diminish at the edges the way most things did. I tried to describe this to him once. In the bookshop in the third week, when the tea the old man had left was getting cold, and the afternoon light was doing the thing it did in old bookshops where it came through the dusty windows and made everything look like it was lit from inside. He listened to my description with the full attention he gave everything. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said that was closer than most. I asked what most got wrong. He said most people who could see him saw the red and stopped there. He said the red was the oldest part, the part that was visible because it could not be completely concealed. He said what I was describing underneath the red was something that very few people had ever been able to see. He said he did not know if that was my particular ability or something else. I said what kind of something else? He looked at me, the red eyes with the other thing behind them that was water moving through the world. He said he was not sure yet. I sat with that answer. It was an honest answer. He did not know. He was telling me he did not know rather than offering a confident version of something he was uncertain about. After 3 weeks of him, I had learned to recognize this as a specific quality of his honesty. He said what he knew, and he said when he did not know, and he did not fill the gap between them with approximation. I thought about what it meant that he was not sure, that there was a question about why I could see him differently from how others saw him, and the question was open. I went home that evening, and I thought about water moving through things and red eyes that were the oldest part, and the quality of being seen at a level I had not been seen at before. I did not sleep well that night, not from fear, from thinking. Chapter 6. By the fourth week, I was honest with myself. I had been doing the work of being honest with myself in smaller doses across the weeks, a little at a time, the way you approach something that was going to be significant by going at it from the edges first. But by the fourth week, I had run out of edges, and the middle was simply there, and I had to look at it directly. I looked forward to the bookshop. I looked forward to it in the way I looked forward to things that mattered, not the casual looking forward of something pleasant, the specific anticipation of something I had found that I did not want to lose. He was the most interesting person I had met in 24 years of meeting people. The word person was accurate. He was a person, whatever else he was, and he was other things. The person-ness of him was real and specific and not performed. He had built himself into a person across a very long time, and the building showed. He was thoroughly himself. The self was unusual, but it was whole. I thought about the difficulty. The difficulty was not what he was. I had known what he was since the second day. The knowing had not changed what I felt. That was information. The difficulty was what I was. I was 24 years old and mortal, and I worked in a field that dealt with the kind of things he was, and that had specific rules about certain kinds of attachment, and those rules existed for reasons that were not arbitrary. I sat with the difficulty honestly. I did not rush toward a resolution. I was not a person who rushed toward resolutions when the thing was complex. I was a person who sat with complex things until I understood them well enough to know what I was actually deciding. What I was actually deciding was this. I had met someone who saw me at a level I had not been seen at before, who was honest about difficult things in a way that cost him something, who had been in the world long enough to have a very specific quality of attention that I had not encountered in anyone else, who had red eyes and was something old, and was also a person sitting on a bookshop floor answering my questions with precision and occasional dry humor. I had also never run from anything in my life that I thought was worth not running from. I was not going to start now. I made a decision on the way to the bookshop on the first day of the fifth week. I made it the way I made most decisions, practically and with the full information available to me, and without pretending the difficulty was not real, while also not letting the difficulty make the decision for me. I went in. He was in the back section. He looked up when I came in. I sat down in the chair. I said I had been thinking. He said he had gathered. I said I had something to tell him. Chapter 7. I told him the truth. Not as a declaration, not dramatically, the way I told him other true things, directly and with the full quality of what I meant behind the words. I said that across 5 weeks of sitting in this bookshop, I had understood something about myself that I had not understood before the Tuesday I saw him across the street. I said what I had understood was that I had been very good at the work and very good at being alone inside the work, and had not noticed that the alone had become a shape I was carrying without having decided to carry it. I said he had done something to that shape without trying to. He had not tried to do anything. He had answered questions and sat on the floor and listened in the way that went under the words, and that was all, but the doing of all that had changed something in the shape. I said I was telling him this because I had a rule about not saying things before they were clear, and this was clear. I said I was also telling him because I had learned in 5 years of dealing with the other layer of the world that the things you did not say had a way of becoming the things that cost you most. I said I found him remarkable. I said I used that word deliberately. Remarkable meant worth remarking on. It meant a person looked at a thing and found it significant enough to mark. He was significant to me in a way that I thought he should know about. I said that was what I wanted to tell him. He was very still. He had a quality of stillness that was different from human stillness. Human stillness was the absence of movement. His was the presence of something that did not need to move. He was still the way water was still when there was no wind, complete, not waiting for something, just fully what it was. He looked at me with the red eyes. He said that in a very long time he had not been told something like that. I said how long. He said he was not sure. He said time was imprecise for him in ways that made the counting difficult. I said that was not an answer. He almost smiled. I had seen him almost smile before. The actual smile was rarer. He said a long time. He said it simply. Like long time was sufficient and accurate, and he was trusting me with the simplicity of it. Then he said something. He said that the reason he had not run when he saw me across the street was not only because she could see him. He said that others had seen him before. Not often, but before. He said the reason was the way I had looked at him when I saw him. Not with fear. Not with the specific readiness that people who dealt with his kind usually had when they saw him. Just with attention. Like he was something worth looking at and understanding. He said he had been looking at things and understanding them for a very long time. He said being looked at that way was different. He said he had stayed in the bookshop the next day because he had thought I might come back and he had wanted to find out if I would. He said I had. He said he had been glad. He said it simply, glad, a simple word from something very old that had been in the world long enough to have forgotten simple things and had apparently not forgotten that one. I reached across the space between us and I put my hand out, an offering, not a demand. He looked at it for a moment. Then he put his hand over mine. His hand was cool the way stone was cool, not cold, cool, the specific temperature of something that did not generate warmth from the inside but absorbed it from around it. The bookshop was very quiet. The old man was somewhere in the front. The afternoon was doing the thing it did in old bookshops. We stayed like that for a while. Chapter 8. We did not pretend the difficulty did not exist. He brought it up himself, not that day, the next time. He came to the bookshop and we sat in the back section, and he said there were things we needed to be honest about, and he would like to be honest about them before anything else. I said all right. He said the first thing was my work. He said he knew what my work was, and he knew what my work's rules were about certain kinds of attachment, and he understood if those rules made what was happening between us impossible. He said he was not asking me to violate rules that existed for good reasons. He said he understood that those reasons were good. I said the rules existed to protect people from being used, from being attached to something that intended to use the attachment. I said I had looked at him across 5 weeks with the full quality of what I could see, and I had not seen that intention. I said that was not a guarantee. I said I was aware of that. I said I was making an informed decision with the information I had. He said the second thing. He said he was old in a way that made certain things very different. He said he did not age the way I aged. He said the gap between his experience of time and mine was significant, and he was not going to pretend it was not. He said he had been in the world long enough to have seen the specific kind of grief that came from the gap, and he was not willing to enter into something without me understanding what the gap meant. I said I understood what the gap meant. I said I had been working with the other layer of the world for 5 years, and the gap was not a new concept to me. I said I was not going to make a decision about the whole future based on the gap. I said I was going to make a decision about what was in front of me now with the information I had now. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said that was the most practical approach to an impractical situation he had heard. I said I was a practical person. He said he had noticed. I said there was something I needed from him. He said anything. I said I needed honesty, not the honesty he had been giving me across 5 weeks, which was good, but the particular honesty that required saying difficult things when they were relevant rather than managing them away. I said that if there was something I needed to know, I needed him to tell me even if telling me was harder than not telling me. He said he could do that. He said honesty was something he had been working on for a long time. He said he had gotten very good at it from the outside and less good at it when it was personal. He said he would try. I said trying was enough. He looked at me with the red eyes. The water moving through things quality that I saw in the other layer was very present, very clear. He said there was one more thing. I said go ahead. He said that what he felt about me was the most recent thing he had felt in a very long time. He said that in a long existence feelings became familiar. You had them often enough that they ceased to surprise you. He said what he felt about me was not familiar. He said it had no equivalent in what he had felt before. He said this was significant to him. He said he was telling me because I had asked for honesty when it was relevant, and this was relevant. I sat in the bookshop chair, and I received all of that. Then I said that was the most honest thing anyone had ever said to me, and I had worked with people who dealt in difficult truths for 5 years. He almost smiled again. This time it became an actual smile. Small, real, the rarer thing. Chapter 9. We built something across the months that followed. It was not like building something I had built before. I had had relationships before, good ones and less good ones, and the kind that were fine while they lasted and not painful when they did not. None of them had had this quality. The quality of two people who were being fully honest with each other about difficult things and finding that the honesty made the things stronger rather than more fragile. He came to the bookshop most days. Sometimes I came to where he lived, which was an apartment that was ordinary on the outside and very particular on the inside. Not strange, just full of things that reflected a very long and specific life. Books in many languages, objects from periods that I recognized from history, a quality of space that was inhabited in the way a space was inhabited when someone had been living in it carefully for a long time. I told him things about the work and about my life, and about what it had been like to grow up seeing the other layer, and what that had cost, and what it had given me. He listened to everything with the full attention that had been disorienting at first, and that I had gotten used to in the specific way you got used to things that were very good. He told me things not all at once, in the order they became relevant or in the order he found ways to say them. The history of him was large and some of it was difficult, and he was careful about the order in which he gave it to me, not managing it away, being careful with how much I received at once. I appreciated this. I told him so. He said he had learned that much. I asked from whom. He was quiet for a moment, then he said from being careless once. He said it simply, and it had the weight of something old and true, and he did not elaborate, and I did not push. My colleague asked me once what it was like. I said it was like being with someone who had seen everything and was still interested. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said that sounded rare. I said it was. In the evenings when we were in the apartment, he would sit by the window, and I would sit near him, and we would read or talk or be quiet, and the quiet was the comfortable kind. The kind that had something in it rather than nothing. He said something once in the middle of one of those quiet evenings. He said that this was what he had been doing in the world wrong for a long time. He said he had been in the world but not inside anything in it. He said there was a difference between moving through things and being in them. I asked him which he had been. He said moving through for a long time. He said he had forgotten that being inside something was possible. He said I had reminded him. I looked at him by the window, pale skin and dark hair and red eyes that were looking at me with the quality of something that had found something it had not known it was looking for. I said I was glad. He said so was he. Chapter 10. A year after the Tuesday, I stopped across from a bookshop window. I am in the back section of that bookshop on a Thursday afternoon, and the old man has made tea and left it near us, and the afternoon light is doing the thing it does in old bookshops. I am looking at him. I look at him in the visible layer first, the way he looked across the street a year ago, pale skin and dark hair, and the specific quality of someone who has been very carefully constructed to move through the human world. The red in his eyes, that is the oldest part. The coffee cup he still carries when he is in the city, because the habit of it is so deeply established, it has become part of the construction. Then I look at him in the other layer. A year ago when I looked at him in the other layer, I saw water moving through things, everywhere and nowhere specific, present at the edges without diminishing, something old looking out through something built. Now I see something different. He is still water, that has not changed. The red is still the oldest part. The present still does not diminish at the edges. All of that is the same. What is different is where the water is moving. A year ago it was moving through the world, everywhere at once, distributed across everything it had been and seen and was. Now it is moving toward something, specifically, consistently, the way water moved toward something when it had found a channel and was flowing in a direction rather than everywhere at once. The direction is me. I understand something sitting in the bookshop chair that I did not understand a year ago. I understand what it looks like when something very old finds something it has not found before, what it looks like in the other layer when the moving through becomes the moving toward. He looks up from his book. He sees me looking at him. He says, "What do you see?" I say, "I see you." He says, "That is not what you were describing." I say, "I know." I say, "I was looking at the other layer." He sets the book down. He looks at me with the red eyes, waiting. I tell him what I see, the water that used to move through everything moving in one direction now, the specific quality of something that has found a channel, what it looks like in the other layer when something enormous and old and previously distributed has become specific. He is very quiet when I finish. I say, "Is that accurate?" He says yes. He says it the way he said yes in the February kitchen of a different story, and the way certain people said yes when the word was the most they could give, and it was everything. I reach across and take his hand. He holds mine. His hand is still cool the way stone was cool. It has not changed. I have learned to find it exactly right. The bookshop is quiet. The old man is in the front. Outside the city is being the city with all its layers visible and invisible. I have been able to see the other layer since I was 4 years old. I have been seeing things other people could not see for 20 years. I have seen frightening things and strange things and things that had no equivalent in the visible world. I have never seen anything like this. Something enormous and old that had been moving through the world for longer than I can comprehend has found a direction, a specific one. It is pointing at me. It has been pointing at me for a year, and I can see it clearly, and I am not afraid of it. I am not afraid of it because I know what it is. I have known what it was for a long time. It is the same thing I feel when I look at him. The word is simple. I have always known the word. I said it to him 6 months ago in this same back section of this same bookshop, when I had found the right moment and the right words and had used them. He had said it back. He says it again now without either of us having spoken, not out loud, in the other layer where the water is moving in a specific direction. The direction is unmistakable. The word is unmistakable. I squeeze his hand. He squeezes back. The tea is getting cold. The afternoon is doing the thing it does. Outside the city has 2 layers and I can see both of them, and in both of them everything is exactly right. That is everything. That is more than enough.